I had always believed that love, loyalty, and sacrifice were what kept a family together. Growing up, I was the one who did everything right. I worked hard, studied hard, and always put my family's needs ahead of my own. But that afternoon, as I sat in the living room of my parents' house, staring at the stack of papers in front of me, I realized that all of that sacrifice had meant nothing. I'm Hannah, and at 28, I thought I had life figured out. I had a good job, a steady income, and a reputation for being the reliable daughter. But when I opened the will that my parents had been keeping a secret from me, everything changed. The will was supposed to be an easy read. After all, it was just a formality, right? My parents had always said, "We're not rich, but we'll take care of everything." Yet there it was, in black and white. Samantha, my younger sister, was the sole beneficiary of everything. The house, the money, the cars, everything was left to her. Not a word about me. I had always been the one to hold everything together. When my parents fell behind on bills, I was the one who paid. When their house needed repairs, I was the one who fixed it. I was the one who helped them manage their finances when things got tight. But in the eyes of my parents, none of that seemed to matter. My sister Samantha, on the other hand, had never been good with money. She was always the free spirit, the one who lived in the moment. She dropped out of college after 2 semesters, bounced between odd jobs, and relied on her looks and charm to get by. But no matter what mistakes she made, she was always forgiven, always supported. When I first read the will, it was like a slap in the face. I couldn't understand it. How could my parents, after everything I had done for them, leave me out? How could they treat me like I was invisible? I was still sitting there, staring at the pages, when my mom walked into the room. She looked at me with a forced smile, the same one she always put on when she wanted to avoid confrontation. "Hannah, honey, everything's fine. Don't overthink it. The will is just a formality." I could feel my pulse racing. "Mom," I said, my voice tight with emotion. "Why am I not in the will? Why is Samantha the only one who gets everything?" She shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "It's just, she needs it more than you. You've always been fine on your own. You've always been so independent. We just want to make sure Samantha has security." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had given up my time, my money, and my energy for this family. I had been the one to make sure they never had to worry. But now I was nothing, just an afterthought. "I've been taking care of you for years," I said, my voice shaking. "I've paid your bills, fixed your car, helped you with everything. And this is how I'm repaid? By being left out completely?" Mom looked at me with a mix of guilt and frustration. "Hannah, you have your life together. Samantha needs us more. She's still figuring things out, and we need to help her. You've always been the strong one. You'll be fine." It was like a punch to the gut. I had always prided myself on being the strong one, the reliable one. But it wasn't enough. No matter how much I did, no matter how much I gave, it was never going to be enough to make them see me. I stood up from the couch, feeling the weight of the betrayal settling deep within me. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Mom. I don't know if I can keep giving and giving when it feels like I'm invisible." She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already walking toward the door. I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. I didn't want to hear how much they needed me, or how I was supposed to just accept being left out. For once, I needed to think about myself. I left my parents' house that day, feeling more lost than I had ever felt in my life. My mom's words echoed in my mind, "You've always been fine on your own." It was as if she had just erased everything I had done for them, all the sacrifices I'd made. It stung like nothing else. I drove aimlessly around town, not sure where I was going or what I was trying to escape. All I knew was that I needed some space, some time to think. After an hour of driving, I pulled into a quiet park, the familiar trees and soft grass offering me the only sense of calm I had felt since reading the will. I sat in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to stop the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. The more I thought about it, the more hurt I became. How could my parents, the people I had always put above all else, treat me like I was nothing more than a bystander in my own life? As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was a text from my brother, Kevin. "Mom called. She said you left. Everything okay?" I stared at the message for a moment, unsure how to respond. Kevin was always the neutral one, the one who never really took sides in anything. He and I had always had a good relationship, but even he didn't fully understand what I had done for our parents. He had his own life to live, and I often felt like he didn't even notice the weight I carried. I typed out a quick response. "No, it's not okay. I just need some time." I put the phone down and leaned back in the seat, letting my head rest against the headrest. I hadn't realized how much tension I had been carrying until that moment. It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders, but in its place was a deep, empty ache that I didn't know how to fill. I stared out at the park, watching the families walking by, the children laughing and playing. For the first time in a long time, I envied them. They had each other. They had support. They weren't doing everything on their own, like I had been for so many years. As the sun began to set, I decided to head home. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep running away from this. I needed to confront the truth. I needed to face my parents, face the will, and decide what I was going to do with my life. When I got home, the house felt emptier than it ever had before. I hadn't realized how much my family had been a part of my everyday life until now. My apartment, though comfortable, now seemed cold and distant. I had worked so hard to build my own independence, to build a life that was separate from them, but now it felt like everything I had worked for was slipping away. I walked over to the couch, my mind still racing with questions. How had everything gone so wrong? Why had I let myself become the invisible one? I had been so focused on doing what was right that I had lost sight of what I wanted, what I needed. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. This time, it was a call from Mom. I stared at the screen for a moment, the guilt and anger swirling inside me. I wasn't ready to talk to her yet, but I knew I had to face her eventually. I swiped to answer, taking a deep breath before speaking. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm, though my voice betrayed me. "What's up?" There was a pause on the other end, and then my mom's voice came through, soft and tentative. "Hannah, I know you're upset, but we need to talk." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses, not yet, but I also knew I couldn't keep running from this forever. "I'm listening," I said, my voice cold but steady. "We didn't mean for you to feel this way. You know we love you, right?" she said, her voice trembling just a little. I closed my eyes, biting my lip. I could feel the tears threatening to spill over, but I fought them back. "It doesn't feel like it, Mom. It doesn't feel like love when I've done everything for you, and I'm just ignored." I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I really am. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We never meant for you to feel like you weren't enough." I scoffed, the bitterness creeping into my voice. "But I am enough for everyone else, right? Everyone else who needs something. How come I'm the one who always has to fix everything?" "Hannah, it's not that simple." "It never is," I interrupted, my frustration boiling over. "You don't get it, Mom. I've been putting everyone else first for years. And for what? So I can be left out when it matters." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her soft breathing, the weight of her words hanging in the air between us. "I'm sorry," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I really am." I closed my eyes, the exhaustion from the day finally catching up to me. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Mom. I don't know if I can keep being the one who holds everything together. I heard her sigh, and then she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say to fix this, Hannah. But please, just know we're here. We're a family and we'll always be your family, no matter what. I didn't know what to say to that. I need some time, I said quietly. I just need some space. Okay, she said, her voice small. We'll give you that. Just remember that we love you. I hung up the phone and let the silence of my apartment settle around me. I had a lot of thinking to do, a lot of decisions to make, and I wasn't sure where any of it was going. But one thing was clear. I couldn't keep living like this, caught between the duty I had to my family and the life I was trying to build for myself. The following days passed in a blur of confusion and exhaustion. I had put my phone on silent, no longer wanting to hear the constant buzz of calls and messages. The last thing I wanted to do was face anyone. My thoughts were a constant whirlpool of anger, guilt, and a longing for clarity I couldn't seem to find. But in the quiet of my apartment, as the days stretched into an uncomfortable silence, I had no choice but to confront it. I had to figure out what was truly important to me. Was I willing to sacrifice my own well-being just to make my parents happy? To appease the guilt that had been drummed into me since childhood? I hadn't heard from anyone, Mom, Dad, or Kevin, since that painful conversation. It was as if I had been erased from their lives, and part of me couldn't help but feel relieved. For the first time in ages, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces. I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. It felt oddly freeing. That was until my phone buzzed one more time. It was a text from Kevin. Mom's having a meltdown. She says she can't do this without you. Please, Hannah, we need you. I stared at the message for a long time. The guilt, the one I had worked so hard to escape, crept back in like an old familiar friend. How could I walk away from them completely? How could I leave them to face the consequences of their actions when I had always been the one who made everything okay? But then I thought back to that conversation with my mother. We never meant for you to feel this way. Those words didn't sit right with me. They sounded hollow, like something my mother had said countless times before to keep the peace. No more, I told myself. No more empty promises, no more sacrifices. I was tired. I was tired of always being the one to hold it all together, only to be cast aside when I needed them most. I had been fighting for their love for so long, and all I had gotten in return was the feeling that I would never be enough. My life had become about meeting their needs, putting my own dreams on the back burner while they failed to recognize my worth. I sat down on the couch and stared out the window, the sun beginning to set in the distance. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. I needed to take control of my own life again, to stop being defined by my role in their world. It was time to find out who I really was without the weight of their expectations on my shoulders. But the question remained, could I really walk away from my family? Could I really leave them behind, knowing the house was on the verge of being sold, knowing they would struggle without my support? My phone buzzed again, this time a call from Mom. I stared at the screen for a moment, then swiped to answer. Hannah, please, her voice cracked, and I could tell she had been crying. I know you're upset, but I need you. We can't do this without you. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar knot form in my stomach. Mom, I said, my voice quieter than I intended. I've done everything for you and Dad. Everything. And what have I gotten in return? Nothing. You didn't even think to include me in the will. She didn't respond at first. I could hear her breathing, slow and heavy on the other end of the line. Hannah, we made a mistake, she said softly, almost too softly. We didn't mean to hurt you. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. It's not about the will, Mom. It's about how I've spent my entire life taking care of everything, and nobody ever acknowledged it. Nobody ever saw me for who I am, only for what I could do for you. I heard a faint sob on the other end. I'm sorry, honey. I'm so sorry. You're right, I didn't see it. I didn't understand how much you were giving up, but I need you, Hannah. We all do. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. This wasn't easy, not by any means. I can't keep doing this, Mom. I can't keep sacrificing my own life just to fix everything for you. She fell silent, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. Instead, she whispered, "Please don't leave us, Hannah. I don't know what we'll do without you." I felt my heart tug, the weight of her words pulling me back into that familiar place of guilt. Why couldn't they see me for who I was? "I don't know if I can help you anymore," I said, my voice firm this time. "I need to take care of myself. I need to figure out what I want. I can't keep sacrificing my own happiness just to make everyone else happy." The silence that followed was deafening. "I love you, Mom," I added, softer now. "But I can't keep being the fixer. You and Dad need to take responsibility for your own lives." There was a long pause before she finally spoke again. "I understand," she said quietly. "I just want you to be happy, Hannah. But we'll try. We'll try to figure it out without you." I ended the call, my fingers trembling as I put the phone down on the table. It felt like a weight had been lifted, but I also felt a sense of dread in the pit of my stomach. Had I made the right decision? Had I really done the right thing? I didn't know. But what I did know was that I couldn't keep being the one who cleaned up everyone's mess. I had spent my whole life trying to make them proud, trying to prove I was worthy of love, but all I had done was lose myself in the process. It was time to rediscover who I was outside of my family. It was time to finally start living for me. The weeks following that conversation with my mom were both a blessing and a curse. I felt a strange sense of liberation in my decision, but there was also a nagging feeling deep inside me, like I had abandoned something important. My entire life, I had been the responsible one, the one who could always be counted on, and now I was walking away. I didn't know if it was the right choice, but it felt like the only choice left. I spent the next few days holed up in my apartment, trying to process everything. The silence from my family was almost deafening. It was as if I had ceased to exist in their world. No calls, no texts. They were letting me go. They were forcing me to go. And yet, I couldn't help but feel a deep emptiness. Was this really what I wanted? To leave behind the people I had cared for my entire life? Was this the end of everything? But as I sat in my small, cluttered living room, surrounded by the comfort of my own space, I started to question if this was the right thing for me after all. I needed to find out what life looked like without their demands, without the constant pull to save them. I needed to understand who I was without my family's problems defining me. Then, unexpectedly, my phone rang again. It was from Kevin. "Hannah, I really think you should talk to Mom. She's not doing well. She hasn't stopped crying since you left." I closed my eyes, letting out a long, slow breath. I wasn't sure I could take much more of this. Kevin's voice, the desperate tone, he didn't understand. He was still in the same mindset, the same place I had just walked away from. "Kevin," I said softly, "I can't keep being the one to fix everything. It's been years of this, and it's draining me. They need to step up, Kevin. They need to take responsibility for themselves." There was a pause, and I could hear Kevin shuffling around in the background. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, more pleading. "But your family, Hannah. You know how they are. They're lost without you. Mom needs you, Dad does too. I can't handle this on my own. I don't know how to fix it." I could feel my heart aching, but I also knew that if I kept giving in, I would never break free. "I know, Kevin, but I can't keep doing this. It's not healthy for me. I've spent years trying to be everything for them, and I lost myself in the process. I need to find myself again, to figure out who I am without all the weight of their problems." "Please, Hannah," Kevin continued, his voice breaking, "Mom's asking for you. She says she doesn't know what she'll do without you. I'm scared she's going to fall apart." The guilt weighed heavily on me. I had always been the one to fix things, to pull everyone back from the brink. But now I needed to stop. I had to be strong for myself, even if it meant leaving them behind. Kevin, I said after a long silence, I love you and I love Mom and Dad, but I have to do this. I can't keep sacrificing my own happiness for them. I've been doing that for too long and it's not healthy. It's not fair to me. He didn't respond right away. I could hear him breathing on the other end, processing my words. Finally, he sighed. I get it. I do. But it's hard, Hannah. It's really hard. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I know, Kevin. I know. But I have to let go, and they have to figure things out on their own. It's time for them to stand on their own feet. There was another long pause. I'll tell Mom you're not coming back then. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, but I held firm. I think it's time, Kevin. I think it's time for all of us to start moving forward, without relying on each other for everything. I hung up without waiting for his response. The next few days passed in a blur of emotions. There was a part of me that still missed them, that still felt that familiar pull to help them. But I knew it was time to stop. Time to let them face the consequences of their choices. They had always relied on me to fix things, and they had never learned how to take responsibility for their own actions. That was no longer my burden to bear. I had started making small changes in my life. I began waking up earlier, taking time to make breakfast, and not rushing off to help someone. I started to read more books, to write in my journal, to do things for myself. It wasn't much, but it felt good to feel like I was finally taking care of me. It wasn't easy, though. Every so often, I'd pick up my phone and hesitate, my fingers hovering over their names. But I would pull away, reminding myself why I had made this choice. I couldn't keep living in a cycle of self-sacrifice. Then, out of nowhere, I received an email from my mom. It was a short message, but the words hit me like a ton of bricks. Hannah, I know you're upset with us. I don't blame you for walking away, but please know that I never meant to hurt you. I've been selfish, and I'm sorry. But I need you. We all do. If you can find it in your heart to forgive us, we'll be waiting. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as tears welled up in my eyes. My heart ached, and for a moment, I wanted to pick up the phone and call her. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and reminded myself that I was doing this for me. I was finding my own path again, without being weighed down by the constant demands of my family. It was time to move forward, to let go, and to reclaim my life. The silence after the email from Mom was deafening. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel something. Guilt, sorrow, but most of all, relief. The weight that had been on my shoulders for so long finally felt like it had been lifted. But in its place was a hollow ache, one that lingered and made me question everything I had done. As the days went by, I tried to keep myself busy. I went for walks around the park, picked up old hobbies I had abandoned over the years, and began to reconnect with friends I had lost touch with. I even started seeing a therapist, someone who could help me unpack all the years of self-sacrifice I had lived through. It wasn't easy. Every step I took felt like a small victory, but it also reminded me of the immense loss I had experienced. I had become so accustomed to being needed, to always putting others before myself, that I didn't know what it felt like to just be, to exist without a constant sense of obligation to fix everything for everyone around me. For so long, I had tied my worth to what I could do for others, especially my family. Now I had to unlearn that. I had to learn how to be my own person, to take care of myself, and to stop living for others. But despite all the progress, there were moments when the loneliness crept in. I missed my mom's voice, even though I knew I had made the right decision. I missed the moments when we would sit around the dinner table, laughing about silly things, talking about life. Those moments felt so far away now, like they belonged to someone else's story. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find a message from my brother, Kevin. It had been a few weeks since I last heard from him, and the subject line of the message made my stomach twist. "Hannah, we need to talk." I opened the email, feeling a knot form in my chest. "Hannah, I know things have been rough, and I don't know what to say. But I think you should know. Mom's really sick. She's in the hospital. They don't know what's going on yet, but I just thought you should be here." I read the message 3 times before the words fully sank in. Mom was in the hospital? The weight of it hit me hard. I thought about her, sitting in that sterile hospital room, alone, with no one around to take care of her, just like she had always relied on me to be there. The guilt was unbearable. Had I made the wrong choice? I stared at the screen, the words swimming in front of me. I felt like I was drowning, suffocated by the old patterns, the responsibilities I had fought so hard to escape. Kevin's message hung there, a lifeline, an invitation back into the chaos I had left behind. I quickly closed my laptop and stood up, pacing around my apartment. I didn't know what to do. A part of me wanted to go, to be there for her, but another part of me, the part that had been so broken by the years of sacrifice, wanted to keep my distance. I had left because I needed to. I had walked away to save myself. But how could I ignore the fact that my mom, the woman who had raised me, was in pain? The phone rang, and I froze. It was Kevin. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hannah, I know you're probably not sure what to do right now, but Mom's asking for you. She wants you here. She needs you." I closed my eyes, feeling the tears well up. "I don't know if I can, Kevin. I don't know if I can go back to that, to being the one who holds everything together when everyone else just falls apart." Kevin's voice softened. "I get it, Hannah. I really do. But this isn't about all that. It's about Mom. We've always been there for each other. This time she's asking for you. She's scared." I could feel the pull, the old familiar tug to do the right thing, to go back and fix everything. But I also knew that if I did, it would be like stepping back into the trap I had just escaped. And worse, I would lose all the progress I had made. I stayed silent for a long time, the only sound between us the steady hum of my breathing. Finally, I spoke. "I need to think about it, Kevin. I'll call you tomorrow." We ended the call, and I sat down on my couch, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I didn't want to be the person who walked away from family in their time of need, but I also didn't want to go back to being the fixer, the one who always put everyone else first. It felt like there was no right answer. I knew that whatever choice I made, it would be a reflection of how far I had come, or how much I was still stuck in the past. As I sat there wrestling with the decision, I felt the tears begin to fall. It wasn't because I was sad about Mom being sick, but because I was torn. I wanted to be there for her, but I didn't want to lose myself again. How could I help her without losing my own sense of self? The answer wasn't clear, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't know what to do. The night stretched on in silence, and I couldn't escape the thoughts swirling in my mind. My fingers hovered over the phone, unsure of whether to call Kevin or let the night pass without addressing the elephant in the room. Everything inside me was torn. How could I leave her there, sick and alone? But how could I go back to that world of guilt, of always being the one to clean up the mess? As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I thought about all the times I had put my own needs aside to take care of others. I thought about the sacrifices, the long hours at work, and the money I had sent, all with the hope that someday they would appreciate it. But they never did. It was always expected, and when I stopped, everything fell apart. I kept my phone next to me, but I couldn't bring myself to make the call. Instead, I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion of the past weeks take over. I fell asleep in a haze, my mind spinning with conflicting emotions. The next morning, I woke up early to the sound of a text message coming through. It was from Kevin, Hannah, she's not doing well. The doctors don't know what's going on, and Mom is really asking for you. Please, can you just come?" I stared at the message for what felt like hours. My heart ached, torn between the woman I had left behind and the one I was trying to become. For so long, I had been the one to fix everything. I had been the one who always showed up, who kept the family afloat, and who kept pushing myself to the brink. But now, I was being asked to return to that role. The question was, could I do it without losing myself again? I called Kevin back. "I'll come," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to make it clear. I'm not coming back to the way things were. I need space to be myself. I can't be the solution to every problem anymore." Kevin was quiet for a moment. "I understand, Hannah. I promise we'll figure it out together. Just come." I ended the call and stood up, feeling both fear and relief coursing through me. I had made the decision to go back, but it didn't mean I had to accept the old patterns. This time, I was going to set boundaries. This time, I was going to take care of myself, even if it meant facing the hardest truths. I packed my bag, grabbed my keys, and drove to the hospital. The familiar roads felt strange now, as if I had stepped out of one life and into another. The city that once felt like home now seemed foreign, and the weight of everything I had left behind seemed heavier than ever. When I arrived at the hospital, Kevin was waiting for me outside. He looked as tired as I felt, but there was a faint sense of relief in his eyes when he saw me. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice soft. I nodded. "Let's just get through this, Kevin." We walked through the hospital doors together, and as we made our way to the room, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I hadn't seen Mom in weeks. I didn't know what to expect. But as we walked into the room, I was taken aback by the sight of her. There she was, lying in a hospital bed, pale and fragile, with tubes and wires running from her body. Her eyes fluttered open when we walked in, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I had known. The woman who had once been strong, who had always been there for me. She smiled weakly when she saw me. "Hannah, you came." I sat down beside her, taking her hand in mine. For a moment, all the anger, all the pain, all the years of feeling invisible seemed to fade away. In that moment, I was just her daughter, and she was just my mom. I wanted to hold on to that feeling, to the simplicity of being in the moment without any expectations or burdens. "I'm here, Mom," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm here." And in that moment, I realized something I had never fully understood before. No matter how far I ran, no matter how hard I tried to escape, there would always be a part of me that wanted to be loved by my family. I didn't need to fix everything. I didn't need to carry the weight of their problems anymore, but I could still love them, in my own way, without losing myself. Over the next few days, I spent time with Mom in the hospital. I didn't fix anything, but I was there for her. I wasn't the savior anymore, but I was her daughter. And that was enough. We talked about things we hadn't said in years, and I realized how much I had been holding on to, both the good and the bad. When Mom was finally released from the hospital, I knew my life was about to change again. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew one thing for sure. I had learned how to set boundaries, how to take care of myself, and how to stop living for others. I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to fully forgive myself for walking away from my family, but I knew I had made the right choice for me. And that was all that mattered. As I sit here, wrapping up this chapter of my life, I wonder what's next for me. There's so much more to discover, so much more to heal, and so much more to learn about myself. But one thing I know for sure is that I'm no longer living in the shadows. I'm living for myself, and that's something I never thought I'd be able to say. And with that, I leave you with this. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is let go. But when you do, you finally make room for what you truly deserve. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I hope you'll come back next time to hear more of my story. Until then, Take care of yourself.